And the 10th of August came, and on the morning, I obviously remember it vividly. It was when all the riots were on in Birmingham. And, you know, you looked out the window, we got parents the night before, you know, we couldn't get Harry's granddad to the hospital because there was all this commotion, obviously outside in the city. But on the morning of his surgery, the anaesthetist came round and said, right, Harry, we're going to get you gowned up, we're going to take you down to theatre. Is there anything you're allergic to? And Harry said, yeah, hospitals and girls. And that, you know, to me, that was, even on the morning, he knew. But as we wheeled him down to the theatre, you know, we did say, Mum, I'm scared. And Harry had always had, he used to often have dreams that he was going to have surgery. And he wouldn't wait, he wouldn't live. And we used to be like, no, you can't have surgery, it's, you know, it's inoperable. And then he did, you know, and he for us, his operation was supposed to be for 4 or 5 hours, and it was to debulk the tumour. They could never remove all of it because of where it was. Yeah. But we tried to give Harry the positivity that after he'd gone through that and he'd have a week of being groggy, but we would be by his side, that his tumour would be the smallest it's ever been since we knew he'd got it. And, you know, and that was what we clung on to. Whatever we faced along the journey, the chemo, the radio, the ups and downs, the house, we were just looking for closure and, you know, and for Harry being as well as he could. But the 4 hours, you know, they sat us on the bed space that they were going to bring Harry back to, and we just paced up and down and watched the clock and kept walking to by the theatre doors, and longest 4 hours ever, except that 4 hours turned into 6, 7, 8, 9, 10,
It was
11.
more complicated than they realised.
Well, we didn't have any communication during that. I think as well, I was one of these that's probably too scared to ask, and I just thought maybe they're getting rid of more of it. Maybe the longer that they're in there, the more of the tumour's going, you know. And then eventually we had, you know, there was Harry's grandparents, there was his brother and sister, there was me, my husband, and we had the doctors come and tell us that Harry had undergone a big hemorrhage during his operation, and for him, he had to go to ICU, supposedly just to give his body a rest. But again, you know, you cling on to and this is why I don't like fluffiness, you know, tell us how it is. Because for us, we were under the impression that it literally was, he'd been through a lot and he needed a rest from it all, and that's literally all it was. And we walked into, obviously, we had to wait again for probably about another half an hour while they got Harry ready and they sedated him and incubated him. To walk in and see him.
That was hard, I'm sure. Especially as up to that point you'd waited all those hours not knowing the outcome.
Yes.
But in your mind, seeing the children on the ward do okay, and it was the first you'd heard that the outcome wasn't what you expected.
Yeah, it was hard to take in, you know, and also for his brother and sister to see him go through that was just it was awful. And once again, you know, you're back going through the treatment journey, and I refused to leave him. So, me and my husband that night, we sat in a chair at his bedside, and grandparents step in, and, you know, the kiddies went home. But 3-4 days after, you know, they said, right, we're going to wake Harry up, and instantly me and my husband thought, wow, he's going to, you know, they're going to stop the treatment and straight away he's going to suddenly, you know, over the course of the day. It just didn't happen. But then once they'd reduced him off the ventilation and he was breathing for himself, we were so relieved that we thought, this is it, we've been through the nightmare and things are now going to get better and better, because they told us they'd removed what they thought was 50% of Harry's tumour. So we thought, here we go, he's out of the danger now. And we were actually just ecstatic, even though Harry hadn't woken up, that we were going onto the ward. And however long that journey took, we knew he was on an uphill journey. Sadly, that wasn't, for us, that wasn't the case. And cutting a very long story short, Harry started to, although he was still asleep and in a coma, he started to, what we thought was to wake up, because he'd say, Harry, blow me a kiss, or pucker up, because that's what I always used to say to him, and his lips would come out, or Harry, the doctor's here, thumbs up, or give us a high five, and he'd do it. But within 7 to 10 days, all of that stopped. He wasn't responding unless you vividly shook on his chest. And his GCS scores were just deteriorating. But at that time, I felt like nobody would listen. And I found it most frustrating, because even though I'm not a medical professional, I'm Harry's mum. And I could tell. I sat by his bedside for the whole 4 months that we were in hospital, from when he was first, sent in. And it can be a very lonely time, and all I did was watch and wait. And but the fact that Harry was responding, the doctors were trying to get across to me that the fact he was responding, he was still responding. But you didn't have to vividly rub his chest at first, he would just do it. If you just said it 2 or 3 times, it was there. And at the end, eventually 3 weeks after his operation, they took him back down for a scan. And that scan revealed that the morning we thought we'd got good news. He had his scan, and the following morning the consultants came round to do their round, and they said, yeah, all's positive, and we'll tell you, it all went well and as expected. And then a couple of hours later, and I always remember it because I was sat on the edge of the bed, my husband had come up with the kids, and his neurosurgeon came round to see us and said, oh, has Harry, started talking yet? Has he opened his eyes? And we said no. And I said, we're really concerned. He's been 3 weeks and he's still not awake. And every other child that we were judging Harry's recovery on what we'd seen. And he said, yeah, I'm a little concerned too. Which, from 1 minute of the doctors that morning picking you up, even though they didn't go into detail of, yeah, everything's good, to then saying, well, actually, no. The scans revealed that the tumour that we've removed has grown back, and then some more. I had to get my husband to sort of pinch me, because and we were actually then, because we'd been told good news on the morning, we were doubting whether he'd actually got the wrong scan results, and because we're clinging on to hope.
I can understand that.
And then our world fell apart, because you just think, what next? And and the constant just praying for Harry to wake up. And